Alright guys, today I'm going to do a video on the rear axle disassembly. I'm going to tear the whole axle completely apart, show you guys how to pull it apart for either whatever it may be, axle bearing replacement, if you just want to pull it apart and you need to change your brake rotor or sprocket hub, whatever. So I'm going to show you guys how to do that. I'm going to pull this one apart and clean it up a little bit and then just throw it back together. So I figure I'll go ahead and do a video and help out anybody who might need it. Okay, tools, what you're going to need. I think I've got everything laid out right here, just so you guys can see it. And so I don't have to go back and forth to my bench repeatedly. Let's see, I left my 10mm over here because I removed the tail light so I can get a good shot here on my GoPro as well. So you're going to need a wrench wise, you'll need a 10, 12, 14, you'll need a 17. Sockets, you'll need a 10, a 12, 17. You'll need a 22mm for your hub nut, or you can also use a 7/8. Works great. Loctite, because Loctite is your friend. The nuts on the axle hub nut is or lock nut rather, is a 50mm. You can use either a big crescent wrench or 2 crescent wrenches. It's also, you can use a 2-inch wrench if you happen to work oil field, have huge wrenches laying around. If not, you can use pipe wrenches. What I'm actually going to do, since I do it so much, I'm going to run down to the welding shop and have a couple of big wrenches made up for me. But other than that, you'll need a pair of dikes, and this needle nose, a screwdriver to flatten out the lock tangs on the sprocket lock nuts. If you're going to pull your bearings out, you'll need a drift. I like using this one here. It's a brass blunt nose drift and a couple of hammers. I like using the dead blow when I can because it doesn't really tear up anything that you hit. To knock the bearings out, you're going to need a more solid hammer, like a ball peen like that. And then, you know, of course, a ratchet. I use my impacts because it's easier, faster. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So here we go. So the first thing you're going to want to do, obviously, is go ahead and get it jacked up. And when you jack it up, you can just jack it up right under here, right underneath that that bar there on the frame where the shock link hooks up. Just back it up and get it off the ground. That's all you need to do. There we go, it's good enough. Alright, let's get started. And I'm not going to show every single step, like taking off every single wheel nut and stuff like that. That's redundant. But I am going to show in depth anything else that you might need help with or whatever. And be sure it's as step by step as I can possibly do it for you guys. So here we go. Your wheel nuts are going to be a 14mm. So we'll go ahead and take our wheels off. If you're just going to do your axle bearings, you don't have to pull this hub off. You can leave it on. But I'm going to go ahead and pull it completely apart. So we're going to go ahead and take this one off as well. So next, you'll just have to straighten out your cotter pin to get the hub nut off. Just straighten it out the best you can. Sometimes these are really beat up and you can't get them straight enough to even get them out. So what you can do, like here, it'll pull out. But if you get one that's really tore up and twisted and everything else, just get it up out of there as high as you can, high enough to grab it with some dikes. Don't cut it off, but pinch it good and tight, and then just pry up on it, and it'll come right out. And then this will be your 7/8 or 22mm. That was good and tight. This one's never been taken. Well, yeah, this has been taken apart. The only thing I've had off it was the hubs when I painted them. Next, we're going to take off our skid plate, and there's four nuts and bolts on it. You're going to have a bolt right here. You're going to have one in the same place on the other side. Then you're going to have another nut and bolt right there. See it through there? Through that hole in the sprocket, or the hub rather, there's going to be a 12mm nut on the back side, and then the bolt head itself is a 12mm. So we're going to bust those off of there. So just reach back there with a wrench and hold it. It'll come right off. We'll do our other one. Okay, that's the front two off. And now the last two on the skid plate are these two here. You can see one right. There's one of the nuts. We'll just take those off and we'll have it out of the way. Okay, and to get those off, you're just gonna hold back up on this side over here with your wrench. Reach in with the ratchet and bust it loose. Yeah, you can still see it. Okay, nuts are off. Now we can just wiggle our bolts through. And off she comes, just like that. So now we have our skid plate out of the way. Let me just gather up all my bolts here so I don't lose them, because this one here I'm probably actually going to put back on. Next thing we're going to do is take off our back brake caliper. Bolt heads on the caliper are 12mm also. These are the ones I use a Loctite for, these two here. You take your caliper and just lay it back out of the way, wherever it'll stay. Just like that up there. So now we have our caliper out. We are almost there already. Next, we're going to go ahead and take our sprocket off. You're going to have lock nuts, not lock nuts, but lock tangs on those little plates there. They're locking each individual nut to keep it from backing off if it were to get loose. And you just need to take a flathead and just straighten them out. And if you get them bent away just a little bit, just like that there, you can just take a socket and a real hammer, give it a tap, and it'll straighten them right out. So I'm going to get these off, then we'll continue. Okay, we got all of our little tabs unlocked, unfolded, so now we can just buzz them right off. And these nuts here are going to be a 14mm. On the 91 up, you're going to have 6 nuts. On the 87 through 90s, the old J-arms, you're going to have 4, and they're actually going to be a 17mm. And these usually aren't real tight. You see how easily they come off. That's why they use those locks on there. So I actually use Loctite on these along with the lock, just so they don't come loose, because if they do come loose, you're going to have a bad day. Especially if you're far from home, out on the trails. Okay. So at this point, if you just want to change your sprocket, all you'd have to do is take off your left wheel, and you wouldn't even have to take your left wheel hub off. Just pull it off of there. Grab your chain out. It'll come right off. So next we're going to go ahead and break loose the lock nuts like this. What I'm actually going to do is put this on the ground to hold it with my foot. There it goes. Now we can bust this one right off. And they're both the same. It doesn't matter which one goes on first. And now this one here. Now we need to lock the axle from turning, and probably should have done this before I jacked it up, but it's no big deal. All you need to do is put one of your hubs on. I'll put this one on so that you can see. And then just take one of your pipe wrenches and just kind of put it in there in a way. It's not going to let it turn because that inner nut shouldn't be real tight. I just put that on there to kind of keep from damaging the thread on the hub. There, got the right way now. Okay. Now we can loosen our other nut up. Like I said, it shouldn't be real tight. And it wasn't. Take all this back off, get out of the way. And now we just take this last nut off here. You can use your pipe wrench if you're using that to get it off, but being big and awkward, I'm just going to use some pliers here to back it off. Once we get to them good clean threads, it'll back right off. All right. Now, the sprocket hub should, keyword should, slide right off. And a lot of times they do get stuck on there. This is where your dead blow comes into play. Come back behind it. You're going to spin it, hit it, spin it, and so on until you get it loose. There we go. Now the axle should slide right out. My GoPro has that shot. Yep. So at this point we can just slide our axle out. Keyword again, should. If it's stuck in there, usually what happens is there's a bearing spacer in there that gets kind of seized on the axle. Take your hub nut, put it on flush with the end of the bolt, and then take your pretty good size hammer, give it a couple of licks. Try to hit it flush and straight so you don't jam that nut on sideways. Just be real sure that you're flush. You don't want it like this, because then what you'll do is make it jump threads, and if you have it on too far, then you'll mushroom the head of the bolt. Or axle rather. So we'll give it a tap. And that's all there is to it. She jumped right on out. Now I see our nut is a little tight on there, but it'll be fine because we've got it flush. Just take your impact. Do a little tap. And see, she still runs right on and off. Cool, cool, cool. Alright, so we're going to slide it out. Just like that. Alright, let me change angles here. So this is what we have now. The brake rotor. Slide right off. There's your axle. Brake rotor. Sprocket hub. Alright, now I'm going to show you guys how to knock the carrier bearings out and the seals and all good stuff. Alright. Now say you just want to knock these bearings out because you're going to have it powder coated. You want to save the bearings and you want to save the seals, because if they're not bad, why buy new ones, right? Let's see if I can show you this. Bear with me, the camera's going to be shaky here for a little bit. So we're going to look inside here. Now you can see that bearing race on the far side? You're going to take your drift, run it through, and catch that bearing race. You'll see there? Just like that. Now what you want to do, let me put this camera back on my tripod. You don't need to use a drift like that. I bought it because it works really well, and I'm always beating the crap out of my extensions. I've always used 3/8 drive extensions, like a 10-inch and maybe a 6-inch, put them together and give them a whack. But after you use them so many times, you end up mushrooming the heads on them. So what you're going to want to do, catch the bottom of that bearing race. Then you're going to want to reach inside here, pick up on that sleeve, because it'll wiggle. Here. Let's see. It'll wiggle up and down. Catch the bottom, give it a few taps, reach in there, and then catch the top of it, angle it upward. There you go. Catch the top, give it a few taps. Keep going top and bottom, because if you try to wedge it out on just one side, it's just going to wedge itself in there. It's not going to come out. So I'm going to put the camera, one of my cameras, on the far side, the side that it's going to come out of. And I'm going to have my GoPro from the top so you can see what's going on both sides. GoPro here. Okay, now if you want, like I was saying, if you want to save your seals, you don't want to tear them up. You want to tear your, I'm looking for something. You don't want to tear up your bearings. Don't reach in here like this and pry that seal out, because when you pry out on it, you're going to smash that seal up and tear it up. Just go ahead and let that bearing tap it out from the inside, and your seal will be fine. So we're going to use, you see, we use a ball peen hammer, and we're going to use our brass drift, and we're going to tap these bearings right out of here, hopefully. So I'm going to start down here on the bottom first, and then I'm going to pick that collar up and then tap it on top. So here we go. I don't know if you can tell already, but that seal's already starting to come out. So now we'll pick up that spacer, catch it on top, and then bottom again. Seal coming out. Top. And then bottom one more time, I think she'll come out. Comes. There it goes. So see, we didn't hurt anything. The seal's in great shape. Just knocked it right out from the inside. These bearings are perfect. There's nothing wrong with them. So we're going to go right back in. For the other side, you do the same exact thing, except it'll be even easier. Now you can take this spacer out, set it to the side. Switch sides on the main camera here. Now we're going to focus on the brake caliper side, and then we'll knock this one out. Here it comes. Went to seal. And there's a bearing.